Hi, welcome to Vanished Voices. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Shannon. Before we get started, quick favor. If you value the work we do here at Vanished Voices, please take a moment to rate and review the show. It makes a real difference. On Apple Podcasts, just scroll down on our show page and tap the stars or write a quick review. On Spotify, hit the star at the top of the app. It just takes a second. If you're listening on Audible, scroll down and tap write a review right under the episode list. And if you're watching or listening on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed and tap the bell icon so you don't miss new episodes. Your support helps us reach more listeners, and it helps amplify the voices of those whose stories might otherwise stay buried.
Now, should we get into Sarah's story?
Yes, I can't wait.
The field doesn't look like a place where someone vanishes. It's flat, open, quiet. In Robeson County, North Carolina, wheat fields stretch on like this for miles. A familiar sight, nothing remarkable. The kind of place you drive past without slowing down. But on the morning of February 4th, 2015, something didn't belong there. Parked neatly off East McDonald Road, tucked into a wheat field just outside the town of Fairmont, sat a white Chevrolet Astro van. The van wasn't crashed. It wasn't damaged. It wasn't stuck or abandoned in a rush. It was parked. The doors were locked. The keys were gone. And the young woman who had been driving it, an 18-year-old named Sara Nicole Graham, was nowhere to be found. There were no footprints in the dirt, no broken glass, no signs of a struggle. Just a van, alone in a field where it shouldn't have been, and a life that would seemingly stop mid-sentence. Sara was supposed to be at work that morning, and she never arrived. And over a decade later, the question remains, what happened to Sara Nicole Graham?
Is that what got everyone's attention, was just a van parked for no reason?
Yep. Before we talk about the theories, the timelines, the unanswered questions, it matters that we pause here and talk about Sara Nicole Graham as a person, because Sara wasn't a headline. She wasn't a mystery first. She was an 18-year-old young woman living quietly, doing what she was supposed to do. She was a member of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, one of the largest indigenous tribes east of the Mississippi. The Lumbee community is deeply rooted in Robeson County, woven into the schools, the churches, the neighborhoods. Sara wasn't just from the area, she belonged to it.
Okay, that's interesting, because I don't believe I've ever heard of this tribe.
I hadn't either.
And being here in Arizona, you hear tribal names a lot, even those in other parts of the country. But This isn't one. I don't think I realized that there was even a tribe that was still existing in North Carolina. When I think of the South, you automatically go like Seminole for Florida. And I know it's because of Florida State probably, but interesting.
From my research, it doesn't sound like they have any federal reservation land.
Oh.
Which might be part
that's
of the
probably
reason.
Why. If there's not dedicated land, there would be no... Yeah, out here, it's like you have to go talk to the tribe or you have to go talk to the council about approval for something or other. So that makes sense.
Right. And this one doesn't have that. So when we get to it, we don't have any jurisdictional.
Oh, that was going to be my next question. So there's no BIA or...
No tribal police. It's just the county, the city.
In theory, you would think that would help because there's not the jurisdictional issues that we see. But now we're probably facing discrimination just based on the fact that she's a Native woman.
Exactly. And there are some big issues with how they are treated.
Not surprising.
It feels like even more so 10 years ago.
I think, yes.
Yeah.
I would agree with that as well.
Everyone who has spoken publicly about Sara, from family members, coworkers, investigators, they all describe her the same way. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't impulsive. She didn't have a history of running away or disappearing without telling someone where she was going. In fact, it was quite the opposite. She was dependable. Sara had a new job at Walmart in Pembroke, and she took it seriously. She showed up on time. She followed her routine. She wasn't someone who skipped work or disappeared without telling anyone. People who knew her have said that if Sara said she was going somewhere, she went there. She was kind, she was sweet, shy at first, but warm once you got to know her. She wasn't loud or dramatic. She wasn't reckless. She didn't draw attention to herself. She moved through the world gently. She was steady. At the time she disappeared, she was in the middle of a transition, but not a chaotic one. She had recently moved back to North Carolina after graduating high school in Texas. She was reconnecting with her Lumbee community. She had a job, a place to live, and people expecting her home.
So how long was she in Texas?
That I can't find for sure.
Okay.
She had been born in North Carolina and had lived there. She moved with her mom to Texas.
Okay.
She went through middle school and high school there.
Okay.
And then after graduation.
So 6-7 years.
Yeah. 6-7.
6-7.
Yeah. Her dad and stepmom lived in North Carolina, which is who she moved in with.
Her dad and her stepmom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There was nothing about Sara's life that suggested she was trying to escape it. There were no reports of turmoil, no known conflicts, no indication that she wanted to leave everything behind. The FBI has stated publicly that everything they know about Sara suggests she did not disappear voluntarily. And when you strip away the speculation and the rumors, what's left is this. Sara was someone who showed up, which is exactly why the morning she didn't matters so much. And there's something else we need to acknowledge here. It's uncomfortable, but it's honest. For someone who was 18 years old in 2015, there is surprisingly little personal material available about Sara. There aren't long interviews with friends. There isn't a preserved social media presence. There aren't pages of stories describing her hobbies, her jokes, her favorite music. And that absence is not because she didn't matter. It's because Sara lived quietly.
Well, okay, I'm trying to think. 2015, really, what did we have then? Facebook and Twitter?
We had Instagram.
Okay, and Instagram.
Which had been 5+ years.
Yeah. Well, I remember when Instagram came out and it was really just like a, hey, show pictures of your food and look at this flower and art. It was very creative.
Right.
The aesthetic you created.
Yes.
And it wasn't like it turned into. And so 2015, I feel like it was still a little bit like that.
And it could have been that
there was no, share a selfie type thing.
Yeah.
Like it just didn't, it wasn't about that.
It could have been also that she wasn't allowed to have social media because she was still in high school.
And maybe didn't have the phone that supported that. Because again, that was still
newer.
Mm-hmm. And I think even then we were still making like the cringy posts on Facebook.
Definitely.
Like, where it's like, hey, I ate celery today. Guess what? Let me update everyone.
Yeah. The other reason is because cases involving missing Indigenous women are often documented differently, with fewer personal details preserved, fewer stories amplified, and fewer voices centered. So much of who Sara was exists only in the memories of the people who knew her, and not in headlines, not in archived interviews, not in searchable databases. And that too is part of this story, because when someone disappears, the question isn't just where did they go? It's how much of their life did the world record before they vanished? Sara deserved to be known for more than the way she disappeared. That's why we search for those things, to find out about what they loved, what they were into, who they were as a person.
Well, that would, I would think, help maybe locate them.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, we just don't have much of that in this story, which you're going to hear me say quite a few times. There are a lot of pieces that are either held back or missing that we just don't have in this story. Now, we talked about she moved from Texas after she graduated high school to North Carolina. She moved to live with her father, Hubert Graham, and her stepmother, Connie Graham. It wasn't because she was leaving something behind. It was just a new beginning. We mentioned she worked at Walmart. She had recently started that job. She worked as a cashier and a greeter, the kind of role that requires showing up on time, being visible, being accountable. Coworkers would later say that she took the job seriously and seemed genuinely happy to be there.
Do you know how long her dad had been married to the stepmom?
That I can find, but I
Okay.
do know that not very long after Sara went missing, they did split up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, that could be stressful.
Yeah.
And then when she was living in Texas, those, 6, 7 years, was she coming back to North Carolina to visit her dad? Or was she just staying in Texas and now is moving back?
It seemed like she did some visiting,
Okay.
but not
Like
frequently.
every summer, every
Right.
holiday. Okay.
Right. There's questions that come up almost immediately in cases like that. And that you might be asking that too. Why was she in North Carolina at all? In 2014, Sara had moved back to North Carolina after graduating high school in Texas. Her mom said while Sara was in middle school, she was super determined and driven. She knew already that she either wanted to be a veterinarian, a neurosurgeon, or an attorney. By high school, she had decided that solving cases was such an interesting career path. She was planning to become an investigator. Part of me wonders if there was a school there that she wanted to attend, but she needed in-state tuition, maybe something related to what she wanted to go into in the future.
Yeah. I don't think it's really a stretch to move back to now be more with her dad.
Totally.
So like maybe it's just like, okay, well, I've been with my mom now for
Mhm.
this many years. Now I want to go be around my dad more, especially you're from the area, you're familiar with it. I know when my mom moved, my brother and I, and then my brother ended up moving in with my dad years later. And so for about 4 years, I was the only child full-time with my mom and my brother was with my dad. And then we would switch for like the normal vacation stuff.
Mhm.
But when I chose to come back to Arizona for college and my brother was already out here, my mom moved with me. She was
Yeah.
like, there's no reason for me to stay in Kansas anymore. If you're moving, I'm moving.
And I tried to search along those lines if she had siblings.
Mhm.
And the only thing I could find was there was a press conference on the 10-year anniversary of when Sara disappeared. And her mom had given a statement for the FBI agent to read. And it included that her brother would have wanted her at his wedding. That's the only reference to a sibling I can find because I had been curious if she
Yeah.
had a sibling already living with her
Yeah.
dad or if her mom didn't move as well
Right.
because she had a sibling in school
Yeah.
finishing up and maybe would have moved after. I couldn't find how many siblings total
Okay.
she had.
Yeah. It's funny that if it's getting part of the story is like, well, why'd she move back? Well, I don't really think it's that odd for a child to want to go be with a different parent or change of scenery, especially at a place that they're
Totally.
already familiar with.
Yep. Especially after graduating.
Yeah.
and-
Like, why not? That's the
Mhm.
perfect time to go and do that.
Yeah, agreed. We mentioned that she was originally from this area. Like Shannon just said, she was a member of the Lumbee tribe, whose community is deeply rooted where her dad lived. She wasn't unfamiliar or unconnected. This was a return to family, community, a place where she could learn more about her roots, be connected to family, extended family, etc. What we don't know is why she moved back exactly, even though we can guess or we can share experiences that we've had that make sense. But there's no interview where someone says she moved to North Carolina for this one reason. There's no law enforcement report suggesting that the move was driven by anything nefarious. It's just
Yeah.
what she did.
Why? I mean, like a lot of people do, instead of moving to another state for college, she moved back to a city she was from.
Exactly. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
She wasn't drifting. She wasn't couch hopping. She wasn't disconnected. She had a place to live. The car that she had been driving was her dad's.
The van. Okay.
Given her something to drive. She had found a job pretty quick that she enjoyed. She took it seriously. It absolutely just looks like someone stepping into the next phase of life. On Wednesday, February 4th, 2015, Sara woke early that morning. Her shift at Walmart started at 7 a.m. She planned to leave the house around 6:30. The drive wasn't long, but it was about 20 minutes. She left her father's home in Fairmont, driving his white Chevrolet Astro van. And like we said, the van wasn't her personal vehicle, but it was her father's. It was reliable, familiar, not something that she would abandon lightly. She had that respect. This is your van. She's grateful to be able to drive it. She's not just going to leave it in a wheat field and disappear. Somewhere between her drive and Walmart, something happened by approximately 6:45 a.m. So 15 minutes later, witnesses would report seeing the van parked in a wheat field off East McDonald Road.
Was there anything indicating it had been run off the road?
Nope.
Okay.
It literally looks like it
just pulled over and parked?
Yeah. And not just off the side of the road, but kind of quite a ways into
off
this
the
field.
road?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Especially when if I had to be at work at 7, I would leave at 6 and it's a 20-minute drive. I would leave at 6:32, thinking, okay, time for me, allow any little bit of traffic bumps and then get inside and clock in.
Yes.
Like that's weird.
Now, the more weird part along that line is that this wasn't off of the normal way that she would drive.
Wait, so it was the normal way or it was
No.
not? Okay.
She shouldn't have driven past this on her normal way to work.
Was she maybe picking up a coworker?
Not that anyone's come forward and said.
Okay.
No one knows why the van was in
Did
that
she
field.
have a phone?
She had a phone.
Was the phone in the van or
Nope.
is it gone?
It's gone.
Okay.
The 6:45 a.m. time means the timing is pretty tight.
Yeah.
The location is closer to her home than it is to work.
Okay.
But 15 minutes later.
So going that route she would not have normally taken, is that the same distance, like time-wise, to get to work?
It would have been longer. It feels like it's an out-of-the-way thing.
Where she could have actually been late to work?
Yeah. Yep. The van sat there for hours. It's said that the first people that noticed it at that 6:45 a.m. time saw it unattended. They saw it sitting there with nobody around. It wasn't actually reported to authorities until around noon.
Okay.
So
the van. People were actually finally saying, hey, there's a random van in the middle of a field. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So what route was Sarah supposed to take to work? She was driving.
How big of a town is Pembroke?
That's a good question.
Because, I mean, I'm thinking if I saw a random vehicle in a field, I wouldn't be compelled to report it. So I'm curious if it's a smaller area, smaller town, where you really do notice things out of place. And therefore, that would prompt you to report a random van in a field.
It is small.
Okay.
It has a population of 2,800 to 2,900 people.
Okay, yeah. So everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
That would definitely be out of place and noticed right off the bat. And they probably knew it was her dad's vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The town's only 3 square miles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So then Walmart is probably the only real place to work at.
Agreed. I think so. She was coming from Fairmont.
That's probably smaller than Pembroke if the Walmart is in Pembroke.
It is. It's 2,200 to 2,600 people.
Oh, that's more than I was guessing.
Yeah. And that was the 2020 to 2023 estimates. It covers about 2.5 square miles.
Wow.
Both those towns are pretty small.
Being that only 20 minutes apart from each other, those towns are going to intermingle and they're still going to all know who people are.
Exactly. The drive was a familiar one. She'd been working there for a while. The drive she would have taken covers these well-traveled roads that are used by commuters every day. Like I said, the van wasn't found near where she was headed. It was closer to her starting point. The most obvious ways to get there would have been I-74 or NC-41. There are some connecting local roads that lead to Pembroke, but the van was off that East McDonald Road, which is quieter. It's this rural stretch of road close to where she started. This leads us to the fact that whatever happened to Sarah happened almost immediately, within minutes of her leaving home.
Yeah. How far is it from her house to that spot in the field?
I couldn't find the exact address that she was starting from,
Okay.
but from everything I've read, it seems like only 5-7 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's really close.
Yeah. It was on that front end of if you take
Right.
the
Like
path.
she had just left.
Yeah. We don't have any GPS data. We don't have any cell phone pings that have been publicly released. There's no traffic camera footage. And we don't have a confirmed last seen location with Sara present. Law enforcement has never publicly released a map of her intended route or a statement saying this was her normal way to work. But when you look at the maps, you look at the best way to get from one to the other.
Right.
This one doesn't make sense. When she didn't arrive to work that morning, I couldn't find any public records stating whether her employer called her home or her cell phone or anything like that to report that she hadn't shown up that morning. Both of her parents worked, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. They may have left earlier.
I was going to say, were they already gone? We don't know.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like there was any indication that something was wrong that day until the van was reported.
Yeah.
When police got there, it was locked. And this was one that you had to lock with a key.
Oh, and I'll say, were the keys there?
Nope.
Keys were gone.
Yet. Same with her purse, her cell phone, anything identifying that she had actually been in the van or actually been the one to put it there. Just gonna leave that for a minute. There were no obvious signs of a struggle. There was no indication that she had planned to meet somebody or had car trouble and asked to be picked up, because that might be something.
Right.
Right? There was no reason for the van to be there. The field wasn't a known hangout. It wasn't close to a friend's house.
If the parents weren't home, how do they know she actually left home?
And I don't know when they leave for work.
Okay.
It could have just been she has to be to work at 7.
Right, so they're just
She's
surmising.
Dependable.
Okay.
She leaves at 6:30 every day.
Surmising.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. The placement of the van felt deliberate, not like a panicked stop, not accidental. It looked intentional.
Well, yeah, and then you get out and then you lock the car with a key, and the key is not there.
Where is the key? Never been found. There's no public indication that police were searching for Sara before the van was reported. In my mind, that makes sense.
Yeah.
She's supposed to be at work.
Right.
If work calls her cell phone, she doesn't answer, or it goes straight to voicemail. They leave a message. Hey, are you coming in today? She doesn't respond. She's an adult. I don't believe that with one morning missing, they would be calling her family. The van in the wheat field seems to be the triggering event that escalated the situation from missed work to missing person. Sara was not officially missing until after the van was found. Once the van was found, police ran the plates, saw who it was registered to, which is Sara's dad. I'm sure, and this is me guessing because I can't find public records stating this, but he knows Sara's driving the van.
Well, yeah, he gave it to her to drive.
Exactly. He's probably calling work. They're then saying Sara didn't come in today, and now we have a missing person. Police did seem to be on the case pretty quickly. For investigators, there was almost no digital or physical trail to follow. The first confirmed investigative action came after the van was reported around noon. Law enforcement arrived at the field. They did secure the area. The vehicle was examined. It showed no signs of a crash, no visible damage, no obvious indicators of what had happened. They didn't find any blood, no broken glass, no personal items clearly left behind. We don't have any reporting or records that show if forensic testing was conducted. I believe that there was, but it hasn't been publicly confirmed. Law enforcement has never stated whether usable DNA was recovered, and they haven't announced that there's any forensic evidence in the first place.
Well, you're going to expect her DNA, dad's DNA, stepmom's DNA.
Mm-hmm.
The absence of foreign DNA would be an indicator.
Right.
And then you can't, just because the other 3 DNA is there, doesn't mean that a crime was committed, because you would expect that DNA to be there.
Exactly. And that's not helping you in any way, shape,
No, that's
or form.
not eliminating a suspect or creating one.
Right. The only helpful thing would be if we found
foreign DNA. Right. Stranger DNA.
Yep. Search efforts did begin rapidly. Local police, the county sheriff's office, and volunteer groups organized around searches of the surrounding area. More than 140 volunteers assisted.
Okay, that's significant, especially in an area that's small.
Yes. I feel like for almost, 7% of the population?
Yeah. I mean, but that's actually not surprising either, because, again, small towns, you know everybody. You're going to start helping, looking for somebody you know.
But I do love to see it.
Yes.
K-9 units were deployed. They even used helicopters to search from above. They focused on the wheat field itself. There was nearby woods and farmland.
Are they close to a larger town? Because for them to get helicopters, again, is pretty impressive. That's not usually a small town.
I'm not sure if they were able to pull in state police.
Yeah. A small sheriff's department or police unit isn't going to have a helicopter on hand.
Even K-9 units.
Yeah.
The FBI did join the investigation pretty quickly.
Okay.
So it could have been that they
resources,
used the helicopters after a couple of weeks when the FBI joined in. With all of these searches, nothing surfaced. No clothing, no phone, no trace of Sara. When the FBI joined the investigation, their involvement signaled 2 things: the seriousness of the case and the recognition that, like you mentioned, local resources might not be enough. The FBI conducted interviews, they reviewed leads, and they later offered a reward for information. It was $5,000. I saw when I listened to their 10-year press conference, they had upped it to $10,000.
Okay, and we know that they don't offer money unless they truly feel it's foul play and that they know that would be motivating to somebody to turn over information.
Yep. Over the years, investigators have stated that they have followed hundreds of tips, but none have led to Sara. And this is where the investigation begins to narrow.
Oh, so has she been found?
She's still missing.
Huh.
And everything with her is still missing.
So none of her personal purse, phone were found in her house?
No.
Okay.
This seems like it's because of a lack of data. We have no surveillance, no traffic cams.
Right.
There's no tracking on the van. I'm not sure about what they got from her phone.
Probably not a lot back then. That was still a newer science, and maybe even pinging. I know it's much better now than it used to be.
But even in 2015, you could still triangulate some
area. When's the last time it pinged?
Right. When did it go silent?
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Well, but then again, 2015, I feel like iPhones were still fairly new for folks.
Yeah, but
people were still using Blackberries. So
6 years, though.
Yeah.
I think they came out in 2008.
But she's 18.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe she's still using...
She could have had a basic
at that point, I'd only...
phone.
Yeah. I mean, granted, I think... But I was also an adult. Like I was on iPhone number 2 by 2015. I think I got my first one in 2011.
I think I got my first one in 2009. But again, an adult.
Yeah. I was still using a flip phone until 2011. And I was all like gung-ho about a BlackBerry. And then I was like, wait, I already have an iPad. Why don't I just get the phone version of that?
Yeah. There has never been public confirmation that Sara's phone records provided or produced usable information. They haven't said whether there was a last known ping, whether they could track her phone movements, tower hits, call logs. Nothing like that has been shared. And again, when I did listen to the most recent, the 2025 case update press release, they took questions. And the whole thing was about 11 minutes long.
Okay.
They took questions for the last 4 or 5. And to every single question, the answer was, we can't release that information.
Oh, okay. Well, that's Okay.
something.
Yeah, it is.
And whether they have it or don't have it and won't say whether they have it or not is maybe another conversation. But it is clear that phone records didn't take investigators to any kind of answer right off the bat.
Or it did, in the sense of, again, it's not leading to a stranger.
True.
And that's why it's not being revealed.
Yeah, also true. The same is true for surveillance footage. Despite the fact that Sara was driving in the early morning hours, there's no publicly released CCTV footage, no traffic cameras, no gas station footage, no store cameras confirming her route or any last sighting. Now, that's not unusual for rural North Carolina in 2015, but it can be devastating for an investigation. The van really only told them where she wasn't supposed to be. Over time, investigators broadened their focus to people in Sara's life, friends, family, coworkers, anyone who might have seen or spoken to her in the days leading up to her disappearance. The FBI later made a statement that remains one of the most telling moments in the case. They said in 2022 that they believed someone close to Sara was not telling everything they knew. And we'll come back to that in a minute. The statement was careful. It didn't name any suspects. It didn't accuse anyone directly. And they did say that again in 2025. It acknowledged a belief that the answer might not lie in a stranger passing, but someone closer within Sara's orbit.
I mean, yeah, that seems most likely now.
Yeah. Law enforcement has said that they believe that Sara did not leave voluntarily, which is one of the few concrete statements that we can find. In the years that followed it, the investigation has gone through cycles. They've done renewed searches, anniversary appeals, although notably it was very quiet around the 5-year anniversary. There was a news conference, like I said, on the 10-year anniversary, new task force that were reviewing old files. At that 10-year mark, law enforcement did again search the area where the van was found, and they also urged anyone with information, even information they think doesn't matter, to come forward. But the case stalled pretty early on because there was nothing to hold on to. No confirmed last sighting of Sara herself, no confirmed digital footprint, no forensic evidence that we know of tying the scene to a crime. Just a van in the field.
With a missing person.
With a missing Sara. From the beginning, investigators publicly stated that there was no evidence that Sara had run away. She had left behind people she loved. She had just started a new job, and she had no known reason to vanish. And in later years, the FBI would emphasize this point repeatedly, stating that everything they knew about Sara suggested she did not leave voluntarily.
I do like that they're not going down the normal runaway, out partying because she was 18 rabbit hole.
Right.
They're actually saying the opposite, which is also why they're able to say it seems that somebody close to her is not telling us all the information, and it's probably somebody close to her. Like, it's very pointed without saying anything.
Yes, absolutely. If she didn't leave on her own, then someone else had to be involved, which opens the door to some difficult questions. Law enforcement has been unusually consistent about this point, even without releasing very many details. The belief that Sara did not leave on her own comes from a pattern of indicators, not this single smoking gun. The strongest include her routine and how she felt about her responsibilities. That new job she took seriously. She had a set work schedule. And it wasn't just a habit of showing up when expected. It was fundamental to her. If she said she was going to be somewhere, she was there. In missing person investigations, behavioral deviation is one of the earliest red flags. We have the abandoned van, which also is a huge red flag that something happened that shouldn't have, especially the fact that it was locked. It seemed to be parked deliberately. They found no mechanical failure and no reason for Sara to just leave it there voluntarily. If she had had some kind of issue with it, she would have called to tell her dad. and someone would have been asked to take her to work. She wouldn't just not go to work.
Right.
Also, people who leave intentionally usually take their vehicle or leave it somewhere traceable,
not
obvious.
Drive it into the middle of a field. Like you would pull over to the side of the road for whoever's you're calling to pick you up to have easier access to you.
Right. They know that she did not take personal belongings. She didn't access money publicly or take anything other than her purse wasn't found in the car, and she would have taken that to work. They didn't find a note, a message.
Well, and no bank accounts used afterwards.
Exactly. The FBI has repeatedly said things like the two things we mentioned. Everything we know about Sara suggests she did not leave on her own. And also, we believe someone close to her is not telling everything they know. The statements are not casual. We know the FBI is careful with wording, with what they put out. We know they're extremely tight-lipped often. In many of our cases, they refuse to say anything. The phrasing of this signals that they've come to some kind of conclusion based on evidence, not speculation, because the FBI wouldn't say that.
No.
Without.
Not in a press release.
Exactly. Not in multiple press releases.
Right.
And they're not saying that they know what happened. They're just saying this doesn't fit voluntary disappearance. Now, we know the FBI does not automatically join every missing person case, especially not with adults. Their involvement here suggests early concern. We've got this suspicious circumstances, a rapid dead end for local resources, and that alone can trigger FBI involvement.
Did they ever go through her house? Did they get a warrant for her location and go through that?
I believe they did, but it hasn't been publicly reported.
Okay.
Now, Sara's disappearance became more complicated because of who her family was. Her father worked in law enforcement and would later become the chief of police in the town of Roland, North Carolina. Her stepmother, Connie, was a deputy for the county that she lived in and that everything happened at the sheriff's office at the time Sara vanished.
Oh, wow. Details that are a little alarming.
And it could be why the FBI was called in.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of conflict of interest, especially when you have to be looking at who's in the closest proximity to her. And that would be her stepmom and her dad.
Both within law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, her stepmom was fired 6 weeks after Sara disappeared.
Oh.
And
do we know why?
The sheriff stated publicly that her termination was unrelated to Sara's case. He called it a routine personal matter, but speculation and rumors spread pretty quickly. But they've never said exactly why.
And we don't know how long she'd been with her dad. A routine personal matter to me sounds like she was having an affair at work.
Oh, yeah.
Or was not doing her job at work.
Right.
Claiming overtime that wasn't really overtime, that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, obviously, if it was, her termination was related to the disappearance of her stepdaughter, well, she'd be arrested.
Exactly.
So I can see why they would put it that way. Doesn't mean that she isn't involved. It just means that that's not what she was termed for. But interesting, 6 weeks after she's terminated, which, okay, maybe she's distraught that her stepdaughter's missing and is not, which you would go to your job and say, I'm distraught, and they would give you like a personal leave. So again, this is very interesting.
Yeah. None of our official listings, FBI posters, or detailed case summaries say how long they were married prior to her disappearance. So I don't know. I will try to access other records later and add that in if I can find it.
All right.
I was going to say along with that, if Sara hadn't been missing and Connie was just missing work for some reason, I could see that being a reason. But say she was missing work to help look for Sara. They're not going to fire her.
No, they're going to give you a personal leave.
Exactly. And there's no record of that.
Yeah.
When we talk about the FBI being involved, which we do often in our cases, it's usually because the disappearance happened on federal tribal land. but that isn't the case here. Her status as an Indigenous woman places her case within a category that federal agencies have increasingly recognized as high risk. In 2015, this awareness was growing, but it wasn't nearly what we have today. So I go back to, I feel like the FBI being involved was not because she was Indigenous. I feel like it is more likely because they needed the resources. They were only hitting dead ends. And also because her dad and stepmom were involved in law enforcement. So they reached out for more help. Often when we see those personal conflicts, they reach out to the state law enforcement, though. So the FBI seems like more than just her parents or her dad and stepmom being in law enforcement.
Right.
Years later, her father would speak publicly, not as a police officer, but as a father. He denied any involvement in Sarah's disappearance. He spoke about the toll of the rumors and how deeply painful it is to grieve while also defending yourself. He told reporters that the day Sarah vanished began like any other until he received the phone call that the van had been found. He says that he knew nothing more than the public did. Despite everything, he clings to hope. He said that until proven otherwise, he believes his daughter could still be alive. And that is what has carried him through the years of these unanswered questions. Now, when we talk about the FBI saying something like we believe someone close to Sarah is not telling us everything they know, and we talk about it being very deliberate language, we want to point out that it does not mean that they know who did it, that they are accusing a specific person, or that they have proof of wrongdoing from someone specific. It does mean that investigators believe there is withheld information. That information is likely contextual, not necessarily a confession. And the person withholding it likely knew Sarah personally and had proximity to her life. This kind of statement over time has been shown to be most often used when a case has stalled. Investigators believe the answer exists, but maybe not in tangible evidence, more in memory. Or they might be trying to pressure someone who may be rationalizing their silence. Some possibilities are that there was someone who saw or spoke to Sarah shortly before she disappeared. This is one of the most common meanings, as we see in the history of them saying something like this and then what came out after. It could be someone who interacted with her the night before, someone who possibly saw her that morning, someone who had a conversation that didn't seem important at the time. These people often don't come forward because they don't think what they know matters, or they fear that they might get someone else in trouble, or they worry that they'll become a suspect. The FBI believes that these details matter so much more than people often realize. It could also mean that there's someone who knows about this deviation in routine, which is key in Sarah's case because she had a routine. She did not normally deviate, and the van was found off of her expected route. So they may be hoping that someone may know why she went there, who she might have planned to meet if that's why she was there, whether she mentioned stopping anywhere. It also could be that whoever it is they're talking about might not think of themselves as hiding information, just not sharing it, maybe because they do not believe it would help in any way. But like we say at the end of most of our episodes, even the smallest information is useful, beneficial, and helpful. There's also one common scenario, not necessarily protecting a murderer, but possibly whoever's withholding information could be keeping it on the down low, someone who was with Sarah when they shouldn't have been, someone involved in a situation they don't want exposed, or someone worried about consequences unrelated to Sarah's disappearance. Silence doesn't always equal guilt. Sometimes it equals fear. Investigators often know that people tell someone something even if they tell no one else, which is interesting.
Yeah, I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be inadvertent, and whoever they told may not even realize what they're hearing, but I believe it.
Right. And then when you hear about this case and you think back on your interactions with her in the weeks leading up to this happening, maybe it stands out now in hindsight. And maybe it did not at all at the time.
So what has her dad said?
Very little.
Okay.
Mostly just what we mentioned, that it was really tough to grieve her being a missing person while also having rumors spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, in that 2025 press conference, her mom had given the statement to the FBI.
Bio mom or stepmom?
Her bio mom. There wasn't anything from her dad. And maybe he had at other ones that weren't publicly available to watch, but just on the news. But I couldn't find them.
That's weird.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Especially being in law enforcement, you would know that public pleas help make people interested and come forward and share information.
I think that's why Sarah's case really tugged at my heartstrings, because I didn't see the public appeals that I see in a lot of the cases.
Which is wild, because this one feels like it's gotten a lot more law enforcement eyes on, bringing in the FBI. And maybe that's why, because in the other cases, it's the public that has to do all the work, or the families.
Or the family.
And then you get law enforcement to get engaged. But this is like the opposite, where, well, they're clearly doing their job, so we don't need to do anything. But just the fact that her parents are law enforcement, I would think extra would be being done, because that's one of theirs. Like when you're in, the family members are part of that family too, that boys in blue code. So that's also very interesting.
It feels like you still, aside from needing the public and the media to encourage law enforcement often to participate in some of these cases, you also need it to spread awareness, to get people who might know something about the case to come forward and share it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they might think that whoever it is has everything they need.
I mean, yeah, right now I feel like it was somebody in the house she lives in. And whether, the dad's, I mean, I understand his reticence being accused, but again, wouldn't you want to step in front of that and, I don't know, do more?
It does kind of feel like if you have nothing to hide.
Oh, is he still with the stepmom?
No, I did read that they had split up not that long after she went missing.
So again, she gets terminated from her job and the dad leaves her, or they split up.
Right.
Now, if you suspect your wife, wouldn't you be trying to do, and now we're back to, was he also involved? Did something happen in the house? And
even by association or helping after the fact.
Right.
Possibly.
But
which again, there's been no public person of interest or suspects named.
Yeah. But I mean, he went on to become chief of police. So
he did. And
that is, this doesn't feel very good.
It doesn't. And her mom's so far away from it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe she still lives in Texas, which has to be heartbreaking.
Right. And then who is she calling for updates? And
right. Because at the end of the day, there is no security footage, CCTV, surveillance, anything to say that Sarah drove the van to that field.
I would have bought it if it was over on the side of the road.
Yeah.
But in the middle of a field, far away from where somebody could pick you up to get you to work.
Right.
Just feels disingenuous. Like it doesn't feel real. Like that feels staged.
That's when you hope they have cell phone pings and they can see, because even if, say, they drove the van and left it there, they still could have taken her phone up until that point and then turned it off. But she would have to call someone else for a ride.
Right. And
so
there would be a record of that.
Exactly.
Because you'd have to say, I'm, at mile marker 22 or whatever.
Exactly. And you could say, okay, she put the van further in the field so that no one else would hit it, or I don't
no.
know. I'm reaching, but
Yeah, like, she's a girl. No.
yeah.
She's going to pull over to the shoulder. I mean, far off the shoulder. You're not going to go bungling into a field in a Astro van.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to drive over all of that either.
No, because like whose land is it? What if you pop a tire? Are you putting ruts in someone's wheat field? There's so many reasons why you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, agreed. So that is interesting. And I do want to know what time both of her parents, her dad
like
and
that.
stepmom,
I would love to know.
When did they go to work?
Were they already out of the house? Were they still there? Did they see her leave?
Yeah, because it's a Wednesday. It's not like but also I guess in law enforcement, you would work on weekends or evenings or whatever.
Small town, I bet you're working 8 to 5.
Right.
And then rotating out, and depending on, I guess, maybe tenure.
Right.
You're going to work day shift over second shift.
We don't know. And it's not out there. Sara's disappearance continues to surface at vigils on social media, in Indigenous advocacy spaces. The Lumbee community spoke her name alongside others because, as we know, Sara's case is not isolated. Across North Carolina, Indigenous women and girls, like every other state we've covered, are disproportionately represented among missing and murdered persons. Over the past several decades, more than 100 cases involving Indigenous individuals have been documented in the state, the majority of them women. In North Carolina, there was a study that showed half of the matched homicides occurred in areas with the largest Lumbee populations, especially Robeson County and nearby counties. However, similar to Missouri, there is no comprehensive official statewide database specifically for missing and murdered Indigenous women in North Carolina. Local advocacy groups maintain their own records. These can differ from state public health or law enforcement, which really just means the true number of missing or murdered Indigenous women are undercounted, possibly misclassified, and like everywhere else in the country, their cases receive less media attention, which is absolutely true in Sara's case. Usually they receive less urgency, which I don't necessarily see to be the case here, but with so little media coverage, so few records released, it's hard to say with certainty, and also less resolution. And Sara's story is part of that pattern. Public reporting doesn't offer many details about Sara's extended family or whether she had siblings living nearby at the time. We just are missing so many key details
that would
the
help.
Family usually provides.
Right. It's very, I don't know, in this case, I feel like it's really odd that the dad and the stepmom are silent.
Yes. And I do feel like it's easier to get local media coverage, which is possibly very difficult when you're living in Texas. It might be a lot harder to be there, boots on the ground, knocking down doors, trying to get them to cover this case. But the ones that are there, it's hard. I'm not seeing the coverage that we see in others from the family. As of today, Sara Nicole Graham has never been found. No arrests have been made. No suspects have been publicly named. No remains recovered. Her case remains open. Every so often, law enforcement renews their appeal. They'll revisit search areas. They release updated statements, but the wheat field remains silent. Sara would be in her late 20s today, and somewhere, someone knows what happened to her. As of Sara's disappearance, she was 5'4". She weighed 160 pounds. She had short, curly, dark hair, brown eyes. She wore glasses, and she did have braces at the time of her disappearance. She is Native American from the Lumbee tribe, and she was last seen wearing her Walmart vest that she wore to work. And this is the part where we turn the narrative into action. If you have any information, even the teeniest, tiniest detail a remembered conversation, anything at all that you might not find important. It could be that missing piece that investigators need. Please contact either the County Sheriff's Office at 910-671-3100 or the FBI Charlotte Field Office at 704-672-6100. It is possible to remain anonymous with either one. And if you don't have direct information, there is a broader call to action. Share Sarah's story, talk about her case, support organizations advocating for missing and murdered Indigenous women. Silence protects no one. Visibility matters. Sara Nicole Graham deserves answers. So does her family and her loved ones. And until then, her voice has not vanished.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Vanished Voices. Every listen helps carry these stories further and louder into the world. To read our blog, explore related resources, or view episode notes, head over to vanishedvoicespodcast.com. You'll also find us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all under @VanishedVoicesPod. We love to connect and hear your thoughts. If you're moved by what we share, please rate and review the podcast and help us grow this community by spreading the word. You can stream Vanished Voices on all major platforms. And as always, refuse to let these voices vanish.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.